Let's talk about this in a bit more detail. Patrick Phillips is the CEO of the Urban Land Institute and joins me right now. Patrick, thanks for joining us. Let's start with the US perspective first of all.
Sure.
We are hearing a lot of news in the data suggesting that the US housing market is starting to stabilise. Is there any substance in that?
I think there is. There seems to be, there's an awful lot of data that are produced monthly, quarterly, very frequently on the US housing market. Some of the data conflict, but it's pretty clear now that there's a consensus emerging that the bottom has been reached and that there'll be a period of slow recovery from here on out. Most of the major cities are showing year-on-year increases in values now. Transaction volume appears to be increasing. The foreclosure problem seems to be moving through the pipeline. There's actually strong participation in some of the government's new programs designed to get homeowners stabilized. So, yeah, we seem to be on the right track.
In this part of the world, we seem to have a problem of property boom that's created speculative excess and arguably created inequalities of wealth within some of the major cities. This is a pressing problem in China. Is the situation getting any better in terms of bridging the inequality gaps within the cities?
There's certainly a greater awareness of the issue. The property markets have played a strong role in the strong, rapid GDP growth in these markets. Urbanization is a fact. The government is trying to organize itself and the private sector to respond to the increasing demand for housing, in particular in these cities. But there's no question that there's been speculative excess. That happens in property markets all across the country. The real challenge is that property development is such a capital-intensive business and it takes so long that government policies can shift dramatically within the time frame of a particular project. So it's easy to overbuild and then it's easy to get excessive demand and dramatic run-ups in prices. So it's a difficult industry to manage from a public policy standpoint.
What's troubling, though, is that when you look at the poster children for the BRIC economies, and I'm thinking about Brazil, Rio de Janeiro and Mumbai in India, you still have this stark inequality.
Absolutely.
And that's really encapsulated by the slums, the favelas and some of the world's worst slums in Mumbai. Is that going to change?
It's going to be a real challenge. I personally believe that slum communities are going to be with us in some fashion for a long time to come.
That's a sad reality then, isn't it?
Well, it is, but you have to look at these slum communities as stepping stones, as gateways for people who are coming from a rural village to a city. It's a path to prosperity. Now, what needs to be addressed, of course, are the terrible environmental conditions and in some cases the terrible social conditions that exist in these communities. But there are policies that are making progress with respect to the ability of these residents to own their houses, to form a source of equity. They can start a business. They can derive an income from property. So it's a stepping stone on a longer path. And if I think we look at them that way and deal with the problems as they are, we can make some progress.
All right. Let's talk about attempts throughout history to create social housing, more affordable housing for the mass market. Right. The critics would say that none of them have really been successful. Is there a model out there that can possibly break the mold?
Well, what's happening in the United States right now is a rethink of housing, particularly housing geared to more low-income residents. And the concentration of poverty, a solution that existed for most of the post-war era, is clearly out of favor now. And we're looking at mixed-income communities, at mixed-use communities, communities that are close to transit, communities that are close to jobs, really trying to integrate a full spectrum of housing within a city and a neighborhood.
Patrick, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Patrick Phillips there, the CEO.